Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Joffy Noodle Legs here with another Noodle film review. Today we're looking at another classic, this time 1976 Canadian film by director David Cronenberg. We're looking at Rabid. This is his second feature film that he did, and his first one was Shivers. This is the 101 film collector's edition, which comes with 2 discs, 2 Blu-rays, one with the movies, one with the special features. It comes with a booklet. It's a great little edition, and I picked it up from CEX. I do have it on Arrow, which my Lemon Lord will inherit. So it's a great film. The film kind of starts off with these 2 young people, a beautiful looking woman and a guy on a motorbike, and they're sort of like travelling through the sort of Canadian countryside, if you like. So we see them as the titles are sort of running up on the motorbike, and then we cut to a hospital, but this is not like a normal hospital. It's a plastic surgery hospital, and we see this sort of like main surgeon and his daughter talking with probably one of the sort of funders of the hospital, and they're talking about some of the sort of procedures that they're doing. So we get to meet some of the characters that we sort of progress in the film, and then we get to back to the motorbike, and we see that zooming along in sort of first person view, and we see that zooming along the motorway at some great rate of speed. And then while they're doing that, we see a family in like a sort of VR Volkswagen sort of camper van, and they're sort of arguing or going the wrong way. So the husband says, okay, well, we'll turn around then. So he goes on the motor to turn the RV around, but then it breaks down, and it's broken down across both lanes of the road, and then the motorbike is now approaching at a vast amount of speed, and there's no way they can stop, so it crashes into the RV, and the motorbike goes sort of flying over like an Eddie Kidd stunt over the road, and it sort of like lands on the ground and sort of bursts into flames, and the guy that's been driving the bike has been knocked away, but the girl's still underneath the bike while it's on fire. And while this is happening, 2 of the patients at the plastic surgery hospital clinic have noticed this, so they go and inform the staff what's happening. So the surgeon orders a ambulance to go out to it, and he says he wants to come with. So he also goes with the ambulance as they rush out to the incident where the girl's still under the bike, and while she's under the bike, the guy who's driving the RV is trying to put the flames out of the bike with a blanket. And then eventually we see the ambulance sort of rushing along the road, and it turns up at the incident. And the guy from the RV says there's one there and there's one over there. So some go to see the guy and some go to see the girl, and they put them in the ambulance, and they start heading their way back to the plastic surgery clinic. The doctor who said, well, the guy's got concussion and minor injuries, he can go to a normal hospital, but the girl's going to need major surgery sort of like straight away, life-saving surgery, because she's got internal bleeding and things like this. So they then arrive back at the hospital, and they were sort of patients there meeting them at the doorway, and they rush through to the surgery, and then the surgeon starts to perform major surgery. I think, you're a plastic surgeon, would you know what you're doing? But anyway, he starts to perform this sort of surgery on this girl, and then we cut strangely to a month later, and she's still in the hospital there, and she's still recovering from the surgery, and we see her sort of like in the room with the nurses attending to her and things like this. and she's been in like a sort of coma, but she sort of comes out of it one night. She sort of wakes up screaming, and one of the sort of guys that work there, I think it's a guy who works there, could be another patient actually, goes in to see her because she's screaming and asks if she's okay, and he goes, "I'll go and get the staff." And she says, "No, no, just I just need someone to hold me for a minute." So he sits on her bed and he sort of gives her a cuddle, and while she's doing that, he gets then something sharp stabbing him, and it's coming from underneath her armpit, and she's got some sort of parasite that is in her armpit, which has obviously come from the surgery, and it's now stabbed that bloke, and now they're laying on the bed, and she's like feeding on the blood of this guy. So we then cut to another the guy that's just been attacked by the girls' apartment, and there's a knock at the door, and the wife goes and answers, and opens it, and it's him. And he comes stumbling into the bathroom. He's got all blood down his side. He's been attacked, so she's obviously scared. She calls the doctor. The doctor then arrives and examines his armpit and says, "Well, I don't know where that's sort of coming from." So he doesn't really know what's happening. Meanwhile, our woman is sort of like still sort of pretending to be sort of like in a coma almost. But then at night time she goes out. She sneaks out of the hospital, and it's really bad weather, and we see her sort of like walking the roadsides and stuff like that. And she comes across like an old barn, and she goes into the barn because the weather's like awful, and it's a cow barn. There's cows in there, so she cuddles up to a cow that's laying on the floor, and does her armpit thing again onto the cow, and this makes her violently sick. So I think this is where the problem comes to the film. So she's now sick, and while she's laying in there next to the cow, the farmer comes in, and he's a bit of a weirdo actually, but he sort of like comes over to her and sort of says, "Oh yeah, you're keeping her out of the cold. I'll keep you warm." So he goes over to her and starts to sort of like cuddle her, and she attacks him with her armpit thing, and then he's attacked, and so then we cut to her returning back to the hospital, and she returns back to the bed to the hospital, and then things just get sort of chaotic. I'm trying to remember all the stuff in the order as it happens because it was a few days ago when I watched it. So she's going around sort of like infecting people with this kind of virus thing. And she starts phoning up her partner saying, "Oh, come and help me, come and get away." And nobody really knows that she's awake. So the doctor's friend, who you saw at the beginning, calls up the doctor, says that she's been calling her boyfriend. So he goes to see her, and she's awake, and then she also infects the doctor with her armpit thing, and then we sort of cut back to the first guy who was infected by the who she attacked in the bedroom, and he's leaving the place and gets into a taxi, and as the taxi's going along, he sort of transforms into this sort of like rabid looking zombie almost. He's got rabies, he's got a green foam coming out of his mouth, and he attacks the driver, and they have a huge crash. And then you go to the farmer that she's attacked in the cowshed. He goes to the local sort of fried chicken place, and he goes in there and he starts going crazy and attacking the people in there and biting some of the people in there. And then we have a big sort of rabies outbreak, and the whole sort of like Montreal and all that go into lockdown, and the girl escapes the hospital and goes to one of her friends in Montreal, and carries on doing all this sort of spreading this infection. And everyone's turning into this rabies sort of like zombies. And that's how the film goes. I'm not going to tell you how it ends or what happens. So I want you to watch it and find out. So what do I think of Rabid? It's a classic. It's an absolute classic. I mean, I first saw this in the 80s. I was a huge David Cronenberg fan. Mostly because I watched this film, The Brood, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so different. So I was like to watch his other films like Shiver and Scanners and Rabid and The Fly and all these really cool films that he made. Naked Lunch, Dead Ringers. He's made some incredible films. So I started to watch his films, and they're all amazing, but they're all kind of like they're all sort of based around parasites and stuff like that. He's really obsessed with it. But that's really cool. He's a really different director. I read an amazing book about him called Cronenberg on Cronenberg, which was a really cool book about his filmmaking beginnings and stuff. But yeah, it's a great film. It's difficult to classify. I would classify it as as a virus horror, like a sort of epidemic sort of horror. And it's quite apt now, isn't it? You know, with what we've all been through with the lockdown, with the coronavirus. And this is like that. The whole town goes into lockdown and they have to carry cards around with them to show that they've been vaccinated. A bit like we all had to do. So it was quite like really ahead of its sort of time. And I was just thinking that's really cool. Really great film. And I just thought it was so sort of like sort of before its time, and a lot of times, you know, so many other films you can see being influenced by it. You know, you can think, oh, that's where they've got that idea from. That's where that film got that idea from. So I see so many sort of like influences that could have been influenced by this film, and it's just so clever. Like 28 Days Later, and things like that. You know, I think none of these films would have existed without Rabid, because it's so quite similar to a lot of these kind of films. Really cool. The pluses of this film, the transfer is amazing. It looks stunning. It looks so cool still, and it's in full screen, which I love. Really good transfer by 101 Films. Yeah, it's a typical David Cronenberg film. Pretty much a lot of the cast from his other films are in this film. Really cool. Marilyn Chambers, who stars in it, is absolutely stunning. She's an absolute stunning woman, and she's absolutely really cool in the film, and I just love that. And it reminds me a lot of Species. If you've seen Species, where the girl's going around and she's sort of like killing, she's doing the same sort of thing. So obviously, again, some influences going on there. Really cool acted, great storyline. It's shot really well. All of David Cronenberg's sort of early films are very stark and very raw looking, but I like that, and it's really cool. Absolutely enjoy it. Negatives for the film, it's not really negative, but I would like to have seen a bit more of the people going a bit crazy with the rabies. We just hear about it a lot of it and the lockdown sort of stuff. So I would like to have seen a bit more sort of action from that sort of side of it. But you know, it's been made 1976, so I can't really say, you know, go and change it, because that's what it is. Absolutely a fantastic film. I'm going to score the film an amazing watch and give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely one of David Cronenberg's highlights to me. I do love Shivers, but this and Scanners are probably two of my favourites. I absolutely love both of those movies. I will look at Scanners one day. Really cool film. Rabid, 8 out of 10, guys. Check it out if you can. Check out some horror channels if you get time, please. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, and Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, Cat Watches Horror, and of course, Sarah of Horror. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.